Alrighty. Looks like people are gonna start jumping in. Thanks everybody for joining us today to see the new and improved EdgeWise, and we'll give it a couple minutes for everyone to join, but we're definitely looking forward to showing this. It's been a lot of work, and I don't know, there's some really cool improvements today.
Yep. Say, Justin, I think this is, what do you think? This is probably one of the largest releases in the last few years we put out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's some color changes and some icon changes are in there, but some really good workflow improvements as well. That we're very happy to have in, and I think it'll be some nice improvements there, and some long overdue items as well. So.
Yep. I know both me and Justin, myself, we've used the software quite a bit, and so a lot of the new improvements are the things that we've always wanted improved, modeling workflows. So I've been enjoying the new version. I just worked on a project this morning, and like I said, a lot of the tools I was like, wow, this is way better than what it was.
Yeah, it's nice to use for sure.
So.
All right. Yeah, so like we said, we will give maybe another minute just to have more people trickle in as it goes. And I think the kind of overview of what we're looking at is showing, the classic rules and situation, it's recorded and all that whatnot, but then kind of just dig into what we did, what the changes are, and then kind of showing not just, kind of the individual buttons, but how that can change the workflow itself, how we, kind of new recommendations that follow that.
Yep. One of the big things is we had some tools in there. So existing tools that we've kind of reworked, different workflows, and really want to highlight that and just kind of say like, hey, using these tools, here's how we, envision, and here's how you can get the most out of the new updates. So,
Yeah.
Well, what do you think, Justin? Should we get started?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's probably ready, and we can. I mean, we got to go through rules and stuff anyways. So.
Yeah. Great. So, can you see the screen? Can everyone see the screen? Thumbs up.
Yep.
Perfect. So let's go through. First things first, just some housekeeping rules. So number one, participants will be muted during the session. So that is totally natural if you guys are muted. Two, questions. So we do have a Q&A panel in GoToWebinar. So any questions about anything you guys see, please write your questions down there. Questions will be answered during the Q&A session at the end. Again, looking forward to a lot of the questions. Recording, the webinar is being recorded, so we will send out the link to the recording once the webinar is finished. So that pretty much wraps it out for the housekeeping, and let's actually dive into the meat of it. So for anyone who's used the new software and actually check the website or anything the colors, brand new branding from the ground up, reorganization. Huge shout out to Sam on the marketing. Justin, I know you had the website too. Really big kind of effort to take everything and basically redo it from the ground up. So that's something really exciting. Justin, you want to talk about any of that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, EdgeWise has looked very similar for the entire time that I've been at ClearEdge, which has been a little while. So it's good to see a refresh, and also, there's some improvements in trying to also make it so the buttons really match the workflow better. So we moved some stuff around. Trevor did a lot of work on icons, which I think he enjoyed. And so that's, we hope people appreciate that and enjoy that. But yeah, so there's, like we said, there's some, a new look and feel, not that far off, but it's an improvement for sure. And again, not just making it pretty colors, it's some other useful workflow stuff too. So we're psyched on that.
Yep. Another thing more I want to talk about, so I really sat down with the developers and kind of reworked and basically talked about the product schedule, stuff like that. So one of the big changes is basically we're going to be on a 6-week development cycle. So what that means is basically we'll do 6 weeks of work on EdgeWise, and then we do 6 weeks of work on Verity. So in a practical sense, this means about each product, whatever product is first in the year, we'll get 5 releases. And then the product that happens second in the year will get 4 releases. So that way we can continuously maintain a release schedule. So that's all very now set in like time. And that way, each release, we can make sure we're including kind of plenty of goodies in there to basically, get the tools out and the feedback that, people would like. So that's kind of one of the big changes in the development, is really kind of focusing and kind of sticking to that 6-week development cycle. So, and then the last big one is, there's been a big push basically for feedback. So, we are a software company, so we do want to make the software that people want. So really making a big effort to say, like, hey, if a bunch of people are asking for this, hey, let's talk about building this. So really one of those things, we want to hear your feedback. We did the rebrand. I know that was a big point of feedback, that people were like, hey, your software looks like it's fresh out of Windows 2000. So really going through and kind of responding to feedback, and again, using that kind of development cycle, that 6-week development cycle, to really build the tools that the industry wants. So that's kind of the behind the scenes and kind of, just some stuff on the development side of things I really want to call out. Justin, anything you want to add to that, or?
No, I mean, we'll talk about later for the kind of future plans, but that coincides nicely with that, and yeah, it's good to see, and like I said, this is a big release, and we are looking forward to more coming.
Yep. So a lot of big releases planned. So all right, so there are some new folks in the crowd, not just people who are here to see the new updates. So just for, if you're not familiar with what EdgeWise or ClearEdge is, EdgeWise is basically a Scan-to-BIM software. So what it does is it takes the point cloud data and basically converts that automatically into objects with a focus on piping. So depending on scan data, it can do anywhere from 50 to 70%. It'll take those, find your pipes, and then spits out the segments, work through the workflow, and basically you can use that as a springboard for your projects for MEP modeling. So there are some, in addition to piping, it also does structural steel, cable tray, square ducting, and we do walls on the architectural side. And there's also integrations with Revit, Autodesk Plant 3D, as well as Aviva E3D. With those integrations, it is intelligent. So for example, if you make like a pipe run or you make like a steel beam, when you create that object and send it over into Revit, that will be fully intelligent. So it's not just some geometry, it is actually intelligent objects. So. All right, so let's actually talk about the new release. So 5.9. Making automation more manageable. So yeah, automation, both me and Justin, we know it well. We've been at ClearEdge for over 11 years, I think. Almost both of us are about 11 years now. So automation, yeah, time flies. So automation has been a big selling point, but one of the big feedback points that we've gotten is, hey, the automation is great, but dealing with things like false positives, how better can a user digest that automation, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things, is we really want to take a look at that first piece of the workflow, like, hey, you have all these pipes, now what? So really kind of focusing on that portion of the workflow to really make automation more of an asset versus, maybe being a little too overwhelming for people. So that was kind of the key thing in this release, in addition to some new tools and new functionality. Also, the big one was basically updating the whole user experience. As Justin mentioned, I got really into icon design, so hopefully people like the icons this release. I did about half of them. So, but yeah, that's basically kind of the release snapshot of a whole. So if we actually dive in, yeah, the UI. I don't know, Justin, what do you think how this compares to like the older versions?
It's a big improvement. At the end of the day, we are, if it's looked the same for the 11 years or almost 11 years that Trevor and I have been here. EdgeWise is a software that's been around for a long time, and it's keeping things like that is hard sometimes. So we did a lot of work to kind of bring this together. It's been something that we've wanted to do for a long time, and took the plunge on this one, and so we hope it's an improvement, and it's a little bit more modernized, and it helps us make it easier to make changes later too. So it's It's been a lot of work, but it's definitely, it's getting there, and we appreciate that a lot.
Yep. So one of the big things we wanted to focus in on with the new UI for piping, structural steel, ducting, and cable tray was kind of spreading things out. One of the previous complaints that we've had about the UI, especially for piping, is like, hey, why is everything so squished together? Why are there multiple drop-down menus? So we wanted to really take advantage, kind of bring things out, and that way the tools are a lot more like right there for you available versus kind of being more buried under a menu or two. So that was one of the key principles.
Yep, we don't need to fit on 720 screens anymore.
Exactly. Everyone's using widescreen monitors. So yeah, we also kind of wanted to go a little bit with the organization of the buttons. So a lot more of a left to right workflow. Again, making it a little bit easier just for, hey, kind of a sequence as you progress through the modeling. So yeah, but no, the UI, especially the icons, that's kind of something that I was especially excited about. Also, with the branding, it's a lot more blue. So hopefully everyone is a big fan of the new branding colors. So a little shout out there. Yeah, so we talked a lot about this. Here's kind of the in-depth, and we'll kind of go through this a little bit more on the demo. But again, drop downs, left to right workflow, bringing out kind of the tool organization. One really important thing is there are no changes to the hotkeys. So if you are like me and Justin, who've been using the software quite a while, and you have the hotkeys down pat, the hotkeys are all still the same. So again, that should affect none of it. Yeah, so again, primarily it's the ribbon organization itself. Yes, one of my favorite functionalities. This one has been asked for ages. Saved clipping boxes. Justin, you want to give a spiel a little bit on this one, or?
Yeah, I mean, this one's been a big request for a long time, and I completely agree. I mean, I think that this is a very critical aspect of working in a large project and really trying to just consume that. I think it is very overwhelming and very understandable, why it would be overwhelming to load in a 150 gig point cloud with in a big space and just get thousands of pipes and try and figure out how to navigate that. So this one is a big one, but more importantly, and the thing that's really going to show next is that it's not just a basic clipping box. We're actually kind of building the workflow around that clipping box. And so this is going to be pretty straightforward functionality of you can create clipping boxes and you can save them. And the leverage will be how those are used in the rest of the workflow. But it's a really important thing to add in, and we're glad we have it. And there's some interesting possibilities with the fact that these are kind of shareable a little bit. There's some possibilities there. So it's leading into some other options in the future. So yeah, I'm very happy to have it in. I think it's a great addition for sure. And there's some other stuff we're thinking about for what we can do with that as well.
Yep. So with the savable clipping boxes, like Justin said, and kind of to my earlier, we really wanted to kind of think about, how do people actually work with the results of automation? So giving the ability to basically use the clipping boxes to divide up your model, and then also have the QA constrained to the clipping boxes itself. So speaking of QA, this will probably be, if I actually click on it. Yes, the QA. So this is going to be one of the ones that a lot of people have used EdgeWise previously. We now can do side-by-side views in the piping, just like with structural steel. So now you have the 3D view as well as the kind of down the barrel view. So you can see this is the pipe that you're checking and it's the point cloud. Another cool thing we did with the clipping boxes is now if you have a zone or an area clipped out, only pipe segments in that zone will appear in the smart sheet. So that way you can make your QA a lot more focused to the areas of interest that you're actually trying to work on. Another big one is this is a little one, is the colors. So one of the complaints is basically people are like, hey, I can't really check, I can't visually tell what pipes I've actually checked. So one of the cool things we did is when you enter into the QA mode, we now have a new default coloring mode that basically will color the pipes by approved. So you get red for ones you haven't looked at and green for ones you have looked at. So again, that offers users a very quick visual indicator of, hey, how much have they actually done and what pipes they still need to focus in on their QA. I like this one especially. This is a game changer. Both Justin and I have reviewed way too many pipes over the years. So, any words you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing to just kind of really focus in on is that the clipping box controls what you look at, and it's not just visibility, but it's actually the the spreadsheets that the smart sheets where the piping is. So it just makes it so that instead of opening a spreadsheet with 10,000 lines, now you're looking at 1,000 lines or 50 lines, however much you want to look at when you want to look at it. And yeah, it's definitely for reviewing. The split view is something we've had in structure the whole time. And it's really nice to have that inside of piping finally, because it's just context. It's just way easier to actually see. It just makes it more feasible to understand what you're looking at and what that is, to decide if you want to keep it, if you need to modify it, if you want to get rid of it. And kind of the color by. I mean, we've had that actually is built-in functionality that's always been there, but it's just bringing it forward so that it's just kind of built into the workflow, a lot more simple. That's kind of historically almost been a power user tool or functionality for visibility, and it's just something that we wanted to bring forward and make it just a standard part of the workflow. And if you want to go back to the original, you have the same settings we've always had, right? This is just something we think makes sense based on the feedback that we've gotten. So it fits really well in the workflow. We think. We hope that you agree.
Sweet. All right. So next up, we got the Easy Connect tool. So the Easy Connect tool is one of the big kind of automated tools that everyone has always been, especially on demos, people are really impressed. That's where EdgeWise will automatically go in and insert like connections between the pipe runs as well as elbows. So one of the big things that we've gotten is, hey, if I haven't worked on a section yet, maybe I don't want my connections over there. So coming off with a theme of kind of using the clipping boxes and really kind of focusing on the clipping boxes and making that central portion or central tool in the workflow, we've now done it so that way when you do the Easy Connect, it will only do the connections inside of that clipping box. Again, allowing users to kind of do a lot more targeted workflows in very specific areas of interest. So
yeah, it's nice. I mean, it's something, again, it's going back to the kind of, you have this big project that's multiple floors, could be hundreds of thousands of square feet, and you click a button and it changes a lot everywhere. And so this just allows you, as a user, to really control what you're changing. And I think that's a really powerful transition in how we've kind of are approaching the workflows inside of EdgeWise.
Yep. Let's see. And then this is my personal favorite, especially this morning I was doing some modeling work, is the new color by approved chains. So one of the biggest complaints has basically been, hey, as I go through, I complete my pipe runs, what ones have I actually finished, what ones are quote unquote done. So we reworked some of the spreadsheets, new organization, added an approved button in there. So now when you go through, you have basically a color by approved chain. So as I go through, I can model my pipe runs, and I'll show kind of this during the demo portion. I can then visually have an indicator of what pipe runs I've actually finished and are modeled. And that works in with some of the older functionality like the export selection. So now we can basically visually track which ones we finished and then get those ones exported out into our end application. So.
Yep, yeah, and it ties in just like we did. It's pretty much just leveraging the exact same mechanisms that we had for part info, and same thing. It's a functionality that you can basically leverage. It turns on automatically, and we think it helps a lot to just organize, and especially with that's just kind of a big pain point is organization, right? It's just these big projects have lots of stuff going on, and that visual cue is super helpful. And then you have options for controlling that visibility as well. So I think this is really nice for really just organization. That's what's always coming down to here is trying to understand what you're doing when we have these big automation workflows.
Yep, and I will admit, honestly, approving some of the longer chains, especially when you do a giant one, seeing that whole thing go green is one of the more satisfying things. I never realized how good that one was, but let's go ahead and, so yeah, here's kind of the recommended workflow. So talk a little bit about this slide. So everyone's familiar with processing the point cloud. So that's basically where we bring in our registered point cloud data, run that one through EdgeWise, and EdgeWise would go through and basically extract out the piping. So that right there. Clipping QA. Clipping the point cloud. Again, we have the new saved clipping boxes, so you can divide up your project in different zones, and then basically QA, around those zones using the new QA tools. We have the Easy Connect. The Easy Connect is basically kind of like the main halfway point of the workflow, where we can insert our first round of automated connections on the QA zones. Once we've done our first round of automated connections, we can go through and actually begin the modeling process. So that's going through using the chain info spreadsheet, connecting up our pipe runs, cleaning by pipe run, as well as approving by pipe run, and again, actually rolling up our sleeves and doing our modeling work. At the end of that, we can then pop it out into our end application, whether or not that's Revit, Aviva E3D, Plant 3D, or if we just need CAD solids, we can use the step format. So this is kind of the overall workflow of the piping with a 5.9 update. So.
Yeah. Trevor, there's some questions on the clipping box usage, so I think that may be a great thing to kind of add in. Is just kind of showing, how to make sure everything's aligned, some of the different ways you can rotate the point cloud, the clipping box, and things like that. Because I think that's something that may be underutilized a little bit, or is just because it's not as impactful as it is now.
Yeah, and that's something we can go through in the demo, kind of some tips and tricks as far as the workflow goes. All right, and I think, actually, speaking of that, let's go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick and switch over to my, let's see, it's a little bit different than Teams. It always takes me a second to figure out how to do this. All right. Justin, can you see the screen okay? I think
Yep.
Everyone else?
Yeah, it's loaded.
Perfect. So a new feature or something I more want to just state, because I see there's one of the questions is SLAM data. So EdgeWise currently we do support unstructured point clouds. So the main thing is the fuzziness. So if SLAM data is clean, it's filtered, then we can actually run the automated routines on that for piping and extract out some pipes right here. In this case, I actually have Navis data. So we can run through using this Navis data set, for example, and you can see it connect again, automatically extract out piping. And this is what we'll go ahead and use to kind of demonstrate the new features. All right, speaking of that, let's go ahead and kind of, let's actually do some modeling. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'll start with, let's start with up here, maybe this like upper section. We can kind of work from there. So first thing I'll go ahead and do is actually probably clip out the zone. So in the view tab, that's where we can find our clip options right here. So to actually do the clip and work with it, I always like to hop into an orthographic view like this. I can use these three little buttons to kind of help with alignment. So for example, if I hop on my X, a little skewed. So I'm just actually going to take over and manually align that. So to actually do the clip, I'll hit the clip button right here. I'll do a single left click, draw this little red line, left click again, turn the line into a box. And then once I have that box drawn, there we go, we've actually performed the clip. If I want to further adjust that, I can then check edit over here. That puts these little spheres, and I can use this to basically kind of cycle through, kind of resize the clip, further adjust things however I want. Anything you'd like to add to that, Justin? I think that.
Yeah, I think a real quick thing to really point out there is that clip functionality, the way that you can kind of, if you're in a top-down view, so if you, maybe Trevor, jump into the kind of the Z view, in this case, this is where the pain I think comes in, is that's not, the x-axis is rotated here because that's where the point cloud is. We're following the coordinate system of the point cloud. Using the clip function, you can click first on, say, a corner. So if you want to like do a top down of that section, you can do the clip function. And if you click first in like one spot, you can see how Trevor is able to like rotate that angle. That's how you basically can set that angle, whatever you want. Is that first click gives you kind of your starting point. The second click, you can kind of get the x-axis and y-axis rotation and then expand it from there. And that's a really quick way of basically setting your options. The other option for doing something like that is, I think, the set x-axis, but that one's a little bit of a finicky button. I think that works in like building, and it's better to use the clip function and basically these XYZ functions to, and that first click lets you start, and then you can kind of get whatever angle you want and whatever view you're in to kind of set the rest of it. So that's really the best way to modify it. I don't really use the just edit function as much, or the set, you know, kind of just do the big box, and because it's harder to get that rotation correct. So usually I use the clip function.
Yeah. Now the clip, and then the key thing, kind of the new functionality we really want to highlight is basically once you have this like the way you want, this is the new save clipping button. So we can call this webinar, you know, like that. And now when we go through, we have that saved. And then there's a little drop-down menu right here where you can go through and basically open up any of the saved clipping boxes contained in this project, like so. Again, makes it really easy basically to go through and have that all present. So that's kind of the new functionality right there with that saved clipping box. But we got that nice and clipped out now. I'm happy with this. So now QA. QA, part info spreadsheet. When we click the QA mode, this is what we got. We got basically the bore of the extracted pipe, you know, in white, point cloud data around it. We can see over here in our 3D view, we have that segment. We have the chain info for the part info spreadsheet with all the numerics like coverage values. And then we can use the approve button to basically cycle through down the different segments, again, performing the review process. The key thing being that as I go through and actually perform the review, any of the pipes that I've checked, those pipe segments will be marked as green, and then only pipes inside of that clip will appear in the actual list for the review process. So again, more focused QA QC. Let's see.
And I think it's kind of, maybe it's just in that part info smart sheet, a big item just to kind of point out is that list is only the items in that clipping box. So if we were to turn the clipping box on and then turn the part info smart sheet back on, it'd be a much longer spreadsheet. You know, it's kind of really reiterating that like you're only looking at what is visible inside of the view at that time.
Correct. Let's see. So for all sake, we'll say we've kind of gone through, we've done our QA. The next thing, you know, to talk about is basically the Easy Connect tool right here. So the new functionality right here is basically only connecting pipes inside the clipping box. So again, that way I've gone through, I've sectioned out the area that I wanted to work on. This is where I can, oops, that's because I'm in orthographic view. This is where I can go through and basically check. And that way, anything outside of that clip, you'll see there's no connections anywhere else. It's constrained just to the area I reviewed. So, yeah. And now the fun part. So if we switch over to the chain info spreadsheet, the chain info spreadsheet is kind of the main mechanism we have for kind of reviewing and kind of working on kind of the pipe runs. So as we kind of do our pipe runs, we can use both the clean process right here. That'll basically get rid of the black straight connections and kind of clean up that pipe run, and also the approve button right here. In the approve button, you'll notice we'll change that pipe run to bright green, so that way we can say, hey, this pipe run is done and we're happy with that. So we can go through, you know, do the approve process. And then one of my favorite things has been, as we go through and do like additional, let's see, I'll actually do maybe this little segment right here and then we'll plop over somewhere else. As we go through and actually do the modeling, if we connect from an approved segment to an unapproved one, it'll actually go through and change colors. So that way, as I actually do my modeling, I can almost kind of quote unquote grow my pipe runs. So I can work along my pipe runs, see what areas I've worked on, and then basically use that as kind of a way to keep track of kind of what I've done. So this has been kind of one of the, and I probably have a little too much fun with this, going through like that.
Easy Connect also helps a lot for that specific case. But yeah, it's nice to be able to kind of see that. And again, it's just tracking. So organization is tracking. It's kind of making it easier to kind of consume this giant bag of pipes that have been automatically generated and quickly go through and make that, you know, into intelligent models.
Yep. So let me go ahead. Because talking and modeling is always a little bit hard. If I get quiet, it's more just because I'm working. So like, for example, I can go down here, I'll section, I'll actually go ahead and realign that. So as Justin pointed out, we can use basically the single clip like this. I'll kind of align that to my pipes, just roughly about parallel. Once I do that, I'll go ahead and basically zone in on the area I'm curious or I would like to work on. We're going to just do like this bottom section right here, and then we can go ahead and basically begin that process. So let's do the QA, switch back to our QA mode like that. Using the coverage tools, coverage is a good one where you can use that. And I'm going to cycle through. So this is 10 years of staring at pipe diameters right here coming into play to kind of run through this. I'm happy with that. We've gone through QA'd that section like that. Now that we have our QA done, switch back to a perspective view real quick. This is where I can go ahead and run my Easy Connect. So I'll do Easy Connect. Yep, constrain that to the clip. Now we have our connections done. We'll switch over to that chain info spreadsheet right here. And now we can actually begin kind of checking things out. So I'll do a couple little edits here. Do something like this. That one's good. So I'll go ahead and approve this guy right here. Oh, another one actually, this is from the long-time users, T-joints. So we actually did do an update on the T-joints. So previously, previously, if T-joints were a little bit finicky on the diameters, so we did actually do some improvements with that. So now T-joints are a lot easier to place inside of EdgeWise. So again, for anyone actually doing the modeling, besides that, we also did some improvements to the snapping tools. So both snapping and the T-joints are a lot more, I guess you could say, user-friendly and not as finicky as with previous versions of EdgeWise. So
yeah, I think just the specifics for that, of like for the T-joints at least, is just you were not allowed to make a T-joint if the primary diameter was smaller than the secondary pipe run, and with a very, very, very tight tolerance. And so then, it basically kind of forced people to you had to standardize really to make sure that the diameters were either exactly the same or matching, and then you could do the connection. So this definitely made it more flexible in that respect, which is a nice one. That was a good one to add in for sure.
Yep. I'm gonna just do a little bit more modeling here. Let's see. I think this about kind of covers it, and I think hopefully everyone can see as I'm going through, again, doing my connections, and then as I'm kind of like happy with it, that's where I'll go ahead and do the approve, like that. And then I can ensure, hey, that pipe run is looking good. And again, using the approve process to really kind of check to make sure there's nothing I am kind of missing in that area. So I'll do like a couple more, and then I think we'll call it good. So I'll go like here, approve, and then I can go like good.
Go. Trevor, there is a good question in the questions here. Does the auto green coloring differ by sheet type? So if I approve a segment like a chain, and then I go back to part info, does it go back
Correct.
to red? Okay.
So yes, so that is something that, or let me rephrase that. So there's color by approved parts, which are the individual segments that are dictated by QA. And then there's color by approved chains, which is dictated by this. So depending on what coloring mode you have, basically, and I can actually just show it here in a second. So we're in the part info spreadsheet, or the chain info spreadsheet right now, checking our chains. If we switch back over to the part, especially go back into the QA mode, you'll see some of those now segments are red. because they technically were created after we went through and did the QA process. But if we switch back to the chain info, now you can see now those are all green because these are all ones we've checked. So.
Nice. And there is a request to show some information on structure. As we mentioned in the beginning, there are people who are kind of newer. There isn't a lot of changes to my knowledge in the structure workflow outside of kind of the icons and improvements there, but so there is, but I think it would be good to just briefly show some of the basic modeling tools for structure, just for people who haven't seen them.
Yep. So we'll do a quick little, well, we'll do it now. Quick little look at structure. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of get a little oriented here. So structural steel inside of EdgeWise, this is basically the brand new updated ribbon. So the functionality and the core workflow is going to be pretty much the same. And that's basically dictated by the extraction tool and these little drop-down menus right here. So there's different steel sizes. So these are all the different catalogs we have available inside the software, just Excel spreadsheets, types, beam, round tubing, channel, angular tubes, and tees. And then the different sizes, there's the auto fit as well as all the different sizes contained in the catalog. Basically, the way it works is you click extract, come over here to like this beam right here, double left click, give it a sec, and this is where EdgeWise will go through, browse that catalog, and then choose from the catalog member size, basically best fits. So it is a little bit more of a manual process up front with structural steel, but one of the things is we do have a tool called the pattern extract tool, which basically is where it's kind of like an intelligent array tool, where EdgeWise will go through and kind of try to look for repeatable patterns in the point cloud and extract those out and fit them to the point cloud. But basically with structural steel, I'll do a couple more pieces. Again, a lot more kind of upfront, kind of the one-by-one process of extracting out the beams individually. Do a couple more here, Justin. I don't know if you want to say a few notes on structure.
I think that's kind of the main workflow. So no major shifts there in this release outside of the icons and kind of. I do believe we moved some stuff around to kind of take up more space on the screen to just kind of expand out buttons more and make some stuff more prominent, but and hopefully icons more obvious on what they do. But yeah, I think that's kind of the core item is just that it's spec driven and has a lot of the same mechanisms that we've seen in the past.
Yep, let me go ahead and kind of do a quick resize there. I'm going to say I'm pretty happy with that. We'll go ahead and extend this over. And then I think we'll continue on. I think that's pretty much most of the workflow stuff I wanted to show. So do that. And we'll do like here. And then one more. There we go. So that's kind of a quick little demonstration of the structural steel capabilities right there. So, all right, let me go ahead and let's see. So let me swap my screen share real quick back to monitor one. Now let's talk about how do you actually get this? Yep, so if you have an active license and you want to get the new version of EdgeWise 5.9, yeah, it's available on our website. It's our brand new website with the new branding. Go there in the software updates portion. You can download the new version and have it basically as soon as you download it. If you're looking, or if you're out of maintenance, or have an older version, or hey, I'm interested in trying this, the best place would be either the website. We do have a form to get in contact with us, or if you reach out to your sales rep, more than happy to set up a demo and kind of walk through and kind of do the, get a demo going or a trial of basically the new features of 5.9. So that would be the easiest way to get a hold of it. I think this actually leads us into the Q&A session, which is kind of I guess, what do we got for questions?
Yep, I'm kind of working through them. So there's a mix of, I think the big one a good question that I did see was around, recognition of types of elements. So for this, it's effectively, we are looking for round objects in the automation, and the high level is that the QA tool is improvements here are really focused around trying to make it easier to identify object types. There's probably future things that I think Trevor wants to talk about, that may help that in the future that we're investigating and looking into. But the main thing is making QA easier to work with and kind of working from there. Let's see. We do have cable trays. Someone did ask about that. There's a whole module for cable trays that's very similar to structure and goes into Revit very nicely. And so I guess the kind of high level, just to kind of, again, covering people who may not be as familiar with EdgeWise, there's kind of so we can do piping elements, and through piping, and I'll kind of focus on the Revit side just for kind of commonality, but when we export to Revit, we can go to Revit as piping elements, we can go as conduit electrical, and as round ducting through the piping module. There's also the ability to do structure, so that can do concrete and standard steel geometry. There was a question about Unistrut. We do not currently support Unistrut, but we can do kind of the core types of workflows or of kind of structural supports, and those will go into Revit. We can do cable trays. We can do standard rectangular ducting and walls. So that's kind of the high level of what EdgeWise can effectively do. When that goes to Revit, all of those elements are native Revit family objects. When we go to other workflows, so E3D, Aviva E3D, we can do the piping and the structure. If we go to STEP, you can do anything. COE also, you can do pretty much anything that we make the geometry for. And Plant 3D is piping. So there's that kind of covers some of the main things that we can generate. So we can generate all those different types of geometry, and then if you keep it as kind of stock step file or COE, it'll export anywhere that imports those types of geometry. But for parametric intelligent elements, Revit primarily, we support everything. Okay. See, handle valves and flanges. So we do have, there's a question on valves and flanges. So we have basic support for valves and flanges. We can add in, they are spec driven based on what the specs are provided. They're fairly limited in the default specs, but that is something that can be filled out with custom specs that you can load in. But they will create a valve, and Trevor just ran that standardization or cleaning stuff, but we'll do apply standard. And when it's imported into Revit, it will be a generic valve. It'll have gate valve and other types of things like that, flanges, butt weld, and all the kind of standard definitions there. And then in Revit and Plant 3D and E3D, we will generate the geometry for those, and basic spec information is needed. Yeah, that's a very good point. T's go into Revit for sure. Yes, they absolutely do. So same for E3D and Plant 3D, and again, STEP and COE, all that goes in. Those should pretty much work everywhere. There is a request for 3D mouse. Trevor, I'll leave that one to you. Let's see. You do need to apply standards before you can apply valves and flanges. So that is a core part of the workflow. So the general overview here, and now we have with the clipping box and the workflow improvements, the ability, the idea here is that now what we're recommending, instead of just saying, okay, here's this giant model with all the stuff that's generated, just start going through it, is going to be, section out zones, just like you would do for any other project. And a lot of you may be doing this already by sectioning out your point cloud and, feeding that into zones already. But using the clipping box tool to effectively isolate an area and then kind of work through that area for the modeling and then go to the next area. And that's going to include kind of manually making, doing the modeling that you're kind of seeing Trevor do here, as well as using clipping tools and other things. Trevor, does the clean function respect the clipping box?
Not at the moment, and that's one of the things that we would like to do. Kind of as you guys can see I'm doing right now, as I kind of complete my pipe runs, we're using the individual clean, which is a clean by pipe run process, and then doing the approve. So that's kind of
Yeah,
how.
yeah, that aligns with definitely the general recommendation. We have a broad clean tool. Clean is something that makes a lot of changes to the model elements that are very important for a proper model that's going to work effectively once you export it. But doing clean on as you go and kind of as you approve things is a great way to go about things. And then in standardization as well. So there's kind of a mix there, but that's kind of the high level. Let's see, MicroStation. We do have a specific, I think it was the COE or no PCF. Is that what we do for MicroStation? Yeah, there's a COE export specifically for MicroStation.
Yep. So COE. Do you want to talk about? It's a free plugin made actually by Leica. So if I remember correctly, if you're a Leica user, you can download, or actually anyone can download.
Anyone can download. Yeah, it's free.
That should be able to bring in the 3D geometry. So
yeah, I think they dropped support for AutoCAD last year or the year before. I can't remember off the top of my head. So STEP is the general recommendation for AutoCAD, but I believe MicroStation still uses that. But I'm not 100% sure on that. Let's see, kind of jumping through because we're getting a lot of questions now. Let's see. So we do so ducting, round ducting is managed through the piping module. So it's a little counterintuitive, but effectively you can model the ducting with the piping module and just don't standardize to ASME and leave it, unstandardized basically. And then as Trevor's pointing out here, if you are going to Revit, you can basically specify that Revit family system type in the chain info smart sheet, and when it goes to Revit, it will come in as a ducting Revit family object for round stuff. If you're doing the rectangular ducting, it'll just be ducting. But that also, if you saw that, the drop down, that's how you do electrical too. So if you're doing, 2-inch conduit or 1-inch conduit, a great way to kind of simplify things, just sort by diameter, and you can kind of use that to help grab a bunch of the conduit elements and basically switch them all. There's the multi-select function, and you can switch them to conduit. And then again, when you go to Revit, then there'll be Revit family objects. That's really important to do before you export, because there's not, unless you have a custom plugin right now, which we do know some customers have made, you can't switch a pipe system to a ducting system or conduit system. So that's something we want to do before you export. And I guess that is a good thing. I don't know if this is not new to this release, it's from the last couple releases, but there is now an export on selection option. And that's super powerful in combination with this, which just lets you basically export whatever you have selected. So if you have nothing selected, you'll export your whole model. But if, for instance, and this happens a lot, you forget to model something inside of EdgeWise, instead of having to restart because you can only import your entire model again, now what you're able to do is model that thing you missed, select it inside of EdgeWise and hit the export button, and it will only export that pipe run that you missed and push that out to the export functionality. So when you import that in, it's just going to import that one pipeline. Or whatever you have selected. That works for basically everything, so including structure and ducting and everything else, and all the exports, I believe. I think there might be, I can't remember if there's any limitation to that, but it's a really nice function. That goes for system type. If you forget to do the system type and you're like, I wish this is a duct and not, or a conduit element, delete just that inside of Revit or whatever you're working in, and set that system type inside of EdgeWise, select that and export only that, and then suddenly you are able to, you don't have to restart your whole modeling process effectively. So that's a really important improvement in the workflow that may have been, it's kind of easy to miss. To do that selection and piping, you do need to have the chain info smart sheet open. So what Trevor has open right now, and you can do it with any of the selection methods. You can do control click. And I think that is a nice improvement. I don't know, this is another nice improvement. If you do control click and you can deselect stuff, we didn't have that in the very first version of this. So now you should be able to deselect stuff. Trevor, can you just show that real quick? So, control click or shift click, and then you can, you know, deselect and select. And, you know, if you hit export now with those items selected in the chain info smart sheet, then only those will be going to whatever you export, basically. So that's a big one for basically, you know, not having to wipe out your model in Revit to you know, if you miss something.
Yeah.
There's a request to demo the elbow-to-elbow modeling. That's a little bit of a Bob Powers. That's a great one. Appreciate
Yep.
that one. That's a good question. It should always be shown.
Yep.
There's some functionality for it.
It's actually one of the new ones that we would like to address before the end of the year. Is basically we have a whole thing with elbows in about I think the next release or the one after that, basically to address like doing S-bends. A little bit of a spoiler, one of the things we're really working on is having elbows be automatically fit to the point cloud as you create them. So that's another piece of functionality we have kind of bubbling, and something, like I said, I'd hope to get out in basically about the next or maybe the one following release. Feel free to email me directly. I'll be sending out part of as the webinar follow-up. Again, would love to hear people's feedback. If you have any questions, I can talk a little bit more in depth about stuff. But again, that is something we would like to address a lot better, is basically doing like S-bends, adding in Y connections, stuff like that. That is basically for the near-term roadmap.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. And for the questions that are coming in, so we're trying to kind of answer them directly. We'll continue to answer the questions and write it out as well. And I think there's some follow-up we'll do as well for anyone who does ask a question we want to follow up. So some more questions. Can we use Plant 3D specs? Sort of. We have default specs inside of EdgeWise. Those are mapped very specifically with EdgeWise E3D specs. And so the general recommendation for the workflow is to, you know, kind of use the default EdgeWise specs, and then in Plant 3D you import with those specs. They're loaded into your like when you install the Plant 3D plugin, it will add the specs to your global specs, the EdgeWise, you know, ASME and DEN specs, and you need to add those to the project. You know, if it's an existing project after you install the plugin. But after you've kind of done that, then switching the specs to whatever you prefer. That's similar in a lot of ways to the Revit, in that, you know, Revit's more flexible. You can use any spec inside of EdgeWise. It'll go into Revit. But the geometry, the Revit family object, will be generic. It's going to be a generic pipe, and you'll need to switch the families over inside of Revit. We do recommend using layer and level naming inside of the chain info smart sheet, because that name will show up inside of Revit as the Revit family name of that generic pipe. So if you want to add, you know, details that you want to remind yourself of later inside of Revit, you can put that layer level information in the chain info smart sheet, and then that will kind of show up. And that is also, there's that information does translate through E3D as well. More questions. Input large sizes for piping. So all right, so the question on large diameters, that's a good one. So you can make any diameter in manually. So if you want to make a tank and kind of represent that diameter, you can definitely do that. For the unstructured piping workflow, we do not make really big stuff by default, and I think that is another item that was added in, is that in the good old desktop connector. In the everyone's favorite, in the original kind of terrestrial structured process scans workflow, we will make larger diameters. With the unified structural workflow, or the unified pipe extraction workflow, it generally we kind of limit the diameters for algorithmic reasons. So that, you know, basically with the extract button, you can make any diameter. You can make big tanks and just extract it like a really big pipe, basically. But for auto extract, it's generally not going to do that. Depending on your workflow, I mean, you know, you can export that as step, probably is the best way, because it just is a giant diameter. If you go to Revit, it's going to be, you know, a big giant pipe basically. So or any other kind of spec-based workflow. So there's some options with that. Let's see. So for and just another question on European Revit families. So we're just dumping in generic objects into Revit from EdgeWise. And so once they're in as generic pipes, you can switch them with whatever family your project works with. The thing we'll point out is that the legacy Revit plugin that comes with EdgeWise has some limitations on international versions of Revit. And so if you're using kind of different languages of Revit, that the legacy plugin that kind of comes with EdgeWise is a little bit limited. It can be tricky for that. There is a new EdgeWise plugin in the tools for Revit, the free point cloud managing plugin that we have on the website that has actually a new kind of semi-in-beta EdgeWise import functionality that is more modernized. It uses templates, Revit templates, instead of kind of dumping in families, and it just takes a different approach that fits the Revit workflow a little bit better compared to the original approach we took, 10 years ago. Let's see. So question on the pipe diameter. It turns the cloud data outside diameter and uses the pipe diameter. So the way that we get to a standard, the kind of how that works is that the initial automated extraction is looking at the pure outside diameter. It's taking an average of the points, of that cylinder in the point cloud and fitting as close to that outside diameter as possible. And then through the rest of the workflow, you'll end up with a, kind of pipe diameter for the whole chain, that whole kind of spool of piping. And what we do is we look at the spec diameter that you select. So you say you want to use ASME or a custom spec. We're going to bump the actual diameter of the pipe inside of EdgeWise up or down, whichever is closer to a actual diameter in the spec. So kind of how that plays out is it's, if we're close to the actual diameter of a nominal 200 millimeter pipe, we're going to just bump it to that nominal 200 millimeter pipe's actual diameter. And so you can kind of see that in the chain info smart sheet, but that's the basic idea. Is initially we will follow the actual diameter of the point cloud, and then basically from there we'll bump it to the closest actual diameter of a spec. So that then it is the, and the nominal value is then what is sent to Revit and Plant 3D and tools for Revit and everything, or anything else. Let's see, what point cloud data is best for use? So we are very flexible for the point cloud data. The real limitation is kind of the hardware, realistically. We'll work with any terrestrial scan data, and we will work with most kind of the popular mobile workflows. If it's a very kind of entry-level scanner, that has a lot of noise, we're going to have trouble with that to do automation. But kind of again, this is a Navis data set here. We work great with Navis. We've seen other workflows that have worked well from mobile scanners. It's really kind of come down to the NAS or the noise. As far as file type, E57 is a classic. We work with recap data, that works fine. Some of the native workflows as well, but generally, I mean, E57 and recap are going to be the two most popular and most common. So there's not really any difference. It's really just whatever you have that you already have, so you don't have to make a new version and duplicate data. That's the recommendation. If you have recap, use that. Don't export an E57 from recap, just to bring that into EdgeWise. All right, so with the last couple of minutes, Trevor, we should talk about what's next in EdgeWise, because this is we have 2 minutes. So what's coming up?
Yeah, so basically the next major release we have for EdgeWise and Verity will actually be focused on one of the big requests we've actually had is related to licensing. Yep. So we're hopefully going to be able to do account-based licensing. So that way you can basically work with like your Autodesk account, for example, sign into EdgeWise, and then you could have like basically using the software like that. So again, having the licensing be a lot similar to Autodesk. So that's going to be that. And then also we're going to be adding hopefully some connections as well as some elbow functionality to the software. Again, that's kind of what we're roughly thinking. The following release, we've got some really cool stuff. One of the big things we wanted to address is false positives. False positives have been a big one. Anyone who's used EdgeWise can probably tell you about corrugated steel. So we're actually doing some very big improvements to the algorithm. I'm really excited. I can't speak too much on them, but basically that should really help eliminate a lot of false positives. So that way we're creating, more accurate piping that requires a lot less QA and should be a pretty significant time savings in conjunction with kind of the improvements to the QA process in this release. By all means, if anyone wants to hear more, feel free to email us, and I'm more than happy I can sit down and address. And if always bring out the NDAs, always more than happy we can talk a little bit more in depth if people are willing to do that. So
yeah, we want to we're excited about the licensing. We just want to make it easy to get a hold of and use, and kind of more modernize that. And then the other one, the improving, what EdgeWise does automatically through new technology. You probably guess where that's coming from based on being in 2025, but we are looking at options and really trying to make it so that when we make stuff, it's actually a pipe. That's that's the core goal that we're really working on. But yeah, so we're excited. This was a big one, and as Trevor mentioned, I don't know if you want to slap the PowerPoint up real quick, but if you want to get this version, it's up right now. It's at clearedge3d.com/software-updates. So there's a big button somewhere on the website for it, but you can go get this, you can install it, you can run it. We want to hear your feedback. Like we said, we're excited about this one, and this basically is a big shift and some big improvements to the workflow. So we want people to use it, and we want people to enjoy it, and then on to the next version.
Yep, and so like I said, we'll be sending a follow-up email. Again, I'd love to meet with people, get people's feedback. If there's ever things, people are like, hey, it'd be really cool to see this or that. By all means, love to set up a meeting, really get your feedback to ensure that we're developing the best, software we can for, you guys. So I guess with that, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll make sure the recording goes out, and hey, enjoy the rest of the day, and happy modeling.
Happy modeling.
All right, take care everyone. Thank you, Justin.
All right, thanks, Trevor.